Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Q&Play, my monthly Q&A series where I answer your questions in a rambly, unscripted format. So, let's get right into it, with the first question being, what would you say is your favorite class to play, and what class has been your favorite to see your players play? Also, what are your favorite multi-class combinations? My favorite class to play is probably Warlock. Warlocks are really versatile and have a lot of roleplay opportunities, though I would say that all D&D classes are fun to play to an extent. I don't hate any playstyles that a D&D class offers, and if I'm playing in the campaign, I do like to change up playstyles, which is why Warlock is my favorite, because Warlock allows you to do that. It can be very versatile and has a lot of situations where Warlock can be effective in combat, and also from a roleplay standpoint, Warlocks have their patron, which is a really cool opportunity for roleplay. In terms of the class I've liked watching, my cleric, the cleric in my party, she is awesome. Watching her learn how to play her class and learn how to be an effective support and watching her progression and improvement is really cool. She knows how to play support better than I do. Like, early on, I would give her advice and give her tips because she was new to the game, and then eventually, I think during our 15th game or something like that, I quickly realized that she is way better at it than I am now, and that her strategies for healing were way better than anything I could come up with, which made me really happy because that meant that she was really invested in the game and invested in keeping her party alive, so that was really cool. However, I do like seeing all of my players play. I've loved seeing their progression. Everyone has been doing great. It's been awesome. Question from Eloida Sarmi. Can you tell the story of this weird avatar? I can. When I was in elementary school, my nickname was Scabbers, like the rat from Harry Potter. I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan, which is why it was always weird to me, but yeah, that's what my friends called me back then. And then, eventually, that kind of just petered out, but I still kept it. All my video game taglines and usernames were Scabbers, so I decided when I was making this YouTube channel to create an avatar based around a rat, because while I'm not called Scabbers on YouTube anymore, I use my nickname in real life, Crispy, which is now, again, what all my friends call me. Scabbers went away and Crispy came in, and that's what I've been called for the past, 3 years. So even though Scabbers is gone, I decided, hey, I would create an avatar based on a rat to sort of remember it. And as for the Plague Doctor mask that the rat wears, it looks cool, and it's kind of ironic. I thought it was funny. A rat wearing a Plague Doctor mask, that's funny. So, yeah, that's how that came about. Question from Liam. I'm planning to DM for the first time, but I'm worried that it won't be fun for my players. What can I do to ensure that my players have fun? Well, the fact that your player's fun is your priority means that you're already a good DM in my book. The priority of having fun with your players is a great thing to have as a DM. It's the most important first step, so you got that down. But in terms of making the game fun for your players, now, this is kind of complicated. I don't know who your players are. I don't know what they like. If your players are super into sci-fi and don't like fantasy, if I were to recommend you take inspiration from Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit or Game of Thrones, that really wouldn't check out. So the thing is, you need to gauge what your players enjoy, what they want out of the game, and gauge what you want out of the game. Build your campaign at least somewhat around what your players enjoy. My players, I just pitched to them a new campaign because we're wrapping up the current one we're doing right now. And I pitched to them pirates and high sea adventures, and they immediately reacted with enthusiasm and freaking out and getting ready to make cool sea-based characters like a Oath of the Ocean's paladin or a swashbuckling rogue. You know, those are fun and cool things, and because my players reacted like that, I know that I need to press forward on this plan of a pirate-based seafaring campaign, because clearly they enjoy that kind of thing. They're really into it. That means that that should be my center point for prepping whatever story I come up with next. So pitch whatever you're creating to your players, ask them if they think they would like it, and start working with them and making characters that fit into the world. That's a great way to make sure that your players are having fun. Work with them during character creation. Character creation, in my opinion, is one of the coolest parts of D&D, because I get to watch my players use their imagination and create what whatever they want, because that's what D&D is. D&D is freedom, and it allows you to basically do anything. It's a game in your imagination. You can do whatever you want. Work with your players to create characters that fit into your world. Like, for example, the druid in my party right now, she doesn't want to be a druid anymore because she doesn't want to prepare spells, so she was thinking rogue. And she didn't want the sneaky assassin type rogue like an edgelord. She wanted like a cool duelist. So I found a duelist subclass on Unearthed Arcana and I sent it to her, and she's really excited, and she's thinking about what race she wants to play as, what the backstory could be. They're asking me about the new locations in the world. That's how I know that my players are not only having fun in my current campaign, but will probably have fun in my new one, because they are enthusiastic. They care. So make sure to, if you want to ensure your players are having fun, gauge their reactions to what you're doing and base your prep and your story around what they clearly like. This doesn't just work for pre-game stuff. You can do this during the game as well. Like, for example, during my 4th, 5th session, I introduced an eldritch hungering void, a Lovecraftian realm filled with extra-dimensional beasts and gods that are far beyond anything my players could comprehend. It's kind of weird. It is a Lovecraftian concept inside of a largely traditional fantasy Arthurian world with a little bit of Game of Thrones politics. That doesn't really gel, and I thought it was a little bit out there, but I like the idea that it's out there. I like the idea that this Lovecraftian universe that exists beyond their vision doesn't fit into this traditional fantasy world, because of course it doesn't. It's an extra dimensional space. And I didn't know if my players would like it. And because it's an extra dimensional space, that means I don't have to bring it up again if they don't like it. But they loved it. They were terrified of it, for starters, and really liked the concept. So I doubled down. I used the void more. It became a greater part of the world. It wasn't the center focus of the world or the center focus of the story, because I had already based the story around demons. So, it was a little late for that, but it wasn't too late for me to create side quests or characters who are connected to the void, and create more concepts around it and expand its lore. It's been really fun, and tomorrow, literally tomorrow, from when I am recording and publishing this video, I'm going to wrap up this current story arc with the Void with a really cool event, and it's going to shock my players, or at least I hope so, because it's going to have large repercussions for the rest of the campaign. That makes sure that your players are having fun. Even in the moment, you can refocus your campaign around what they love. So yeah, if you're starting out as a DM, that's probably one of my #1 tips for making sure your players are enjoying yourself. Check up with what they enjoy and double down on those things. Question from Alejandro Chalco. How would you fix the underpowered class Ranger/Monk? Well, I wouldn't, because I don't think either of those classes are underpowered. I think that Ranger and Monk get a really bad rap because of some subclasses. Ranger/Monk can be really, really powerful. And even the ones that are underpowered, like Beastmaster already has a bunch of revamps that make it much, much better. They're out there. You can find them very easily. I don't think Ranger/Monk needs to be tuned. New books have made them much more powerful. I do agree that Ranger in the player's handbook is very underpowered, but if you take any other piece of official material with player materials in it, like Xanathar's or Tasha's, there are very powerful Ranger classes in there. Same thing with, I haven't looked at Monk, but I'm sure that Monk is the same thing. I don't think those two classes are as underpowered as people say. Are they as powerful as Wizard? No, because a lot of the classes in D&D, it's just, they scale to a degree that is broken. Wizard is a great example. That class gets absolutely broken at higher levels. Ranger/Monk, they don't get broken at higher levels like that, but that doesn't mean they're bad classes. I mean, if you've watched Critical Role, you've seen Bo do a ridiculous amount of damage in one round. It is possible for every class in D&D to be really powerful. It's just, they're not going to be as powerful as a class like Wizard, which historically has been absolutely broken. Question from Cole. I'm starting a new campaign and I've never played before. How do I know what class I should pick? Well, the pitch that each class has is a pretty good way to gauge what the class is, but also looking through subclasses, because I find that the true fantasy of the class comes from the subclass, not the class itself. Like, for example, if you take Fighter and then you pick Echo Knight as the subclass, Echo Knight from Wildmount is completely different from your traditional fighter, your traditional martial warrior. Echo Knight adds a spark of magic to it. Or Arcane Trickster. Arcane Trickster is very different from your traditional rogue. And take it a step even further, I found a homebrew Corsair class for Ranger. Corsair is like a pirate. That is way different from any sort of Ranger class you could think of. The subclass completely changes the fantasy of the class, and if you're starting at level 3, then you should probably look through subclasses anyway, because you're going to pick one at level 3, and if your character's starting there, you need a subclass. So looking through subclasses is a good way to gauge what your character will become. I find that looking through subclasses helps me to come up with ideas for characters, especially since subclasses are so thematic, homebrew or official material. So yeah, if you want to create your first D&D character and you just don't know where to start with what your character can do, looking through subclasses is a great way to start, in my opinion, even if you're not starting at level 3. Question from DANTVSVIRGIL, is the golden gun specifically a rogue weapon or maybe a hunter ranger weapon? This is connected to a couple people asking me about my homebrew, so I figured I'd take this opportunity to talk about my homebrew stuff. The golden gun is actually an item that I ditched. I made it early on as a legendary weapon that can do a high amount of single target damage one time, sort of like the golden gun from Destiny, but I ended up ditching it because I couldn't make it balanced. I couldn't figure out how I could make the golden gun without making it basically just murder every boss, or at least reduce every boss to half health. It would create power creep. Essentially, the golden gun would be necessary for every single boss fight. And I thought that that's not what I want. I don't want the golden gun to be the end-all be-all for bosses. So I decided to ditch the item. Even though I do think it is a really, really, really cool weapon, and I love the concept of the golden gun in Destiny. It is such a cool weapon. But yes, I decided to get rid of it for this campaign and replace it with a gun based on Lumina from Destiny. Well, at least it took the look of Lumina from Destiny. It has a completely different effect. It imposes disadvantage upon a creature and also has an area of effect mass ranged attack, which I think is pretty good for a legendary weapon overall. All those cards, if you're asking about my homebrew, they were all made by me. The items themselves came from other things. Griffin Saddlebag is a big source of items for me because Griffin Saddlebag consistently pumps out really, really amazing items. I just use Photoshop to basically just cut out the image, and then I create a backside of the card with the description of the perk. And it has a little perk icon and has a neat little flavor text description. I really like Destiny, and in that game, the flavor texts are really, really awesome. So I decided to carry that into D&D and give all my weapons and armor in D&D flavor text as well. So yeah, that's a little bit about my homebrew. I do a lot of homebrew. My campaign is entirely homebrew. I homebrewed my own world, but a lot of it is traditional fantasy. A lot of it is derivative of other things, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it's just not very original. I took concepts from a lot of places, and I think I've come up with some cool things, but overall, yeah, I don't know if it's something worth talking about in a Q&A. I might make a video about it one day. Last question from Alexander Vg. How do you prepare sessions as a DM in the most efficient way? I start out on my whiteboard. I just jot down a couple ideas for the central theme of the session. What is the session going to be based around? It's usually based around something that happened last game. So in this next coming session, the entire session is going to be based around the aftermath of a battle with Lovecraftian eldritch entities. The party won the fight. They didn't really fight anything from the void. They didn't clash with Lovecraftian gods because, quite frankly, they wouldn't stand a chance. They instead fought with dark reflections of themselves because I figured, how could a party fight something of pure possibility? Well, they could fight alternate versions of themselves. Possibility. It was right there in the title, and I decided to take advantage of that. But that battle still had consequences even if they won. The party might not be driven insane because they didn't really fight a creature of the void. If they did, that's probably the result. But they left a portal open to the void for 2 days. When I left a portal to the void open for 10 minutes in a previous session, one of my NPCs did that, it basically consumed half of a mountain and a castle. That's for 10 minutes. They left one open for 2 days. So I'm going to tell them the result of what that means for the world. It's a really big deal, and it will change the socio-political climate of the campaign for the next few sessions, and the next campaign is probably going to be based around that same aftermath. That is the point of the session, to introduce that aftermath. That is the main central focus. Then from there, I determine specific interactions, fights, things like that. What else is going to happen in the session? It's probably going to take me an hour to introduce the concept of what happened in the aftermath. It's not going to take long. I still have 2 hours. What am I doing after that? Well, they could talk with NPCs about it, so I decided, okay, now I'm going to write out what NPCs think about it, interactions that the party could probably have with those NPCs. What else are NPCs doing? Because this happened in the middle of a war. The war didn't stop happening, so what's going on with that? I just create basically like a tree. Start at the seed of the session idea and then branch out to other things, roleplay encounters, and fights. That's what I'm putting down. After I've finished drafting up ideas on my whiteboard, I get onto Google Docs and start writing out specific things. I sometimes script out lines. Not whole scripts, because those will be useless in a D&D campaign, but descriptions. Like a description of what happened in the aftermath. That I should write down because I don't want to mess that up. It's something that's really, really important, and I know for a fact I'm going to need to describe it, so I might as well write it down. I write down the opening lines of an NPC's monologue in response to what happened. I know that the party will probably talk to specific NPCs about it, NPCs connected to the void, so I'll write down what they'll probably say just to get the ball rolling on a roleplay interaction. Most of the roleplay is going to be improv, but that doesn't mean I can't give myself something to base that improv off of. That is how I prep my sessions and the way I do it in what I think is a pretty efficient way. Ideas, then specifics, and then after that I do the game stuff. Like I grab maps from Dungeon Craft, which makes making maps really easy. I make tokens from Google Drawings, and that's about it. It only results in me prepping for basically 3 to 4, maybe 5 hours per session. Okay, and I think that is going to wrap it up for today. If you guys enjoyed this episode of Q&Play and you want to let me know, then please do leave a like. If you want to check out more content from me, then please do hit subscribe. And finally, if you want to leave your own thoughts or questions, go down to the comments down below. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.